Welcome, today's story is full of drama. Like and subscribe to stay updated. Let's get started.
None of this would have occurred if my wife Liana wasn't the most paranoid and suspicious person I've ever known. Every detail of life was classified information shared only on a strict need-to-know basis, and apparently, being her husband didn't qualify me for that. I loved her dearly, but getting even the smallest bit of information out of her was like dragging a boulder uphill with a team of 40 mules. She had a knack for turning something as mundane as a grocery list into a top-secret CIA file, and she protected it just as fiercely. Sometimes her paranoia was almost funny, but most of the time, it crawled under my skin and stayed there. We were just your average middle-class couple living in Weston City, trying to find a little peace and happiness, but her constant security freakouts could push me right to the edge. It all really kicked off about 17 years ago, just before we tied the knot. She fell victim to a minor case of identity theft. Some guy got a hold of her credit card number and sold it to a hillbilly in Kentucky. The guy bought a pickup truck and a couple of cases of bourbon before the card was canceled. As identity theft goes, it was pretty minor. They even caught the guy red-handed and tossed him in jail for a bit. No harm was done to her credit score, just one of life's little hiccups, right? Not to Liana. For her, it was full-on DEFCON 4. The steel walls came down, locked, and stayed bolted shut for years. Our house in a perfectly safe neighborhood became the only one on the block with burglar bars on every window, a top-of-the-line security system, a second monitored alarm, and just to top it off, a spot on the local precinct's special watch list. And that was just the physical stuff. Her personal laptop? She guarded that thing like it held the crown jewels. Most of the time, ID let her paranoid tendencies slide, humoring her quirks, but there were moments I had to draw the line, standing my ground while she hurled wild accusations and, occasionally, household objects at me. Every now and then, I'd even win a battle or two, and when that happened, the makeup sex was off the charts. Trust me, nothing beats a paranoid woman when it comes to fiery makeup sex. One of the rare battles I actually won was convincing Liana of the need for regular system maintenance and data backups every 6 months. So like clockwork, on New Year's and the 4th of August, I got supervised access to her precious laptop. She used to have a desktop, but I bought her a sleek new laptop for Christmas 3 years ago. You'd think I gifted her the nuclear football. The way she guards that thing is on par with a Secret Service agent watching over the codes to launch atomic weapons. Just like her purse, it never leaves her sight. I've even caught her taking both into the bathroom. Years ago, she had a computer crash and lost her bookmarks, old emails, and some miscellaneous data. It's the kind of thing that happens to everyone. You learn from it, back up your stuff, and move on. But for Liana, it was like a personal cataclysm. Somehow, it became my fault, and to this day, she hasn't forgiven me. I apologize, but that would only feed into her delusions. Plus, I still have no clue what I supposedly did wrong. She never even let me touch that computer back then, let alone handle backups. So now, on these rare, tightly controlled occasions, am granted access to what she considers her sacred temple, her laptop. The security on this machine is nothing short of ridiculous, and I should know because I installed most of it. If Liana could get her hands on a retina scanner or some other high-level biometric security to lock out 999,999% of humanity from even seeing her Windows boot screen, she'd make me hook it up in a heartbeat. As it stands, her laptop has a BIOS password, 2 separate OS login screens, each with unique passwords, and every single file is compressed and encrypted with 256-bit security. But she didn't stop there. Access to her Firefox browser, Outlook email, and Microsoft Office apps are all individually password protected. And that's not all. Her data files, mostly just MS Word documents, have an additional layer of encryption. Online shopping. Forget it. None of her credit cards have ever been stored on any website. According to Liana, there's not enough tea in India or enough web security in the world to make online shopping safe. I'll admit she's not completely wrong there, but still, the level of paranoia is way over the top. Hey Race, the kicker, Liana isn't some high-ranking government official or corporate executive. She's a mid-level editor for Metro Living, a local glossy magazine that gets tucked into the Sunday paper for free. The magazine gushes over art galleries, museum exhibits, trendy clubs, and the best spots in town to grab a margarita or martini. Occasionally, they get bold and cover overpriced restaurants, rave about top-tier plastic surgeons, or preview fall fashion collections from big-name department stores. And surprise, surprise, all these glowing reviews just happen to be for businesses that are also paid advertisers. Real hard-hitting journalism right there. There wasn't a single thing on her laptop that anyone would care about, but good luck convincing Liana of that. Now me, I'm an IT manager for a small but successful commercial real estate company. I handle some confidential data for the owner and the chief accounting officer, but nothing that warrants this level of government-grade security. It's all about proportion, people. Unfortunately, Liana had no concept of that whatsoever, and that ultimately is what led to the tragic and unnecessary end of our relationship. When August 4th rolled around again, it was time for the semi-annual ritual of dealing with Liana's over-the-top laptop security. This time, though, I was ready. She marched into my home office, laptop clutched like it was made of gold, and we got down to business. After she secretly typed in her boot-up BIOS password, we stuttered our way through her other various login security screens. Finally, I was unenthusiastically entrusted with her greatest treasure and given the usual dire warnings about what unspeakable punishments would occur to me if the slightest file was screwed up. Castration with blunt, rusty implements was just the warm-up. The real fun would start later, she assured me. In 17 years of marriage, she's somehow never gotten it into her head that I do this for a living. I think it is this complete lack of trust that she has about everything that drives me nuts. Trust is really the first cornerstone of any relationship, let alone a good marriage. If your spouse doesn't trust anyone or anything, then things can get fairly shaky fast. For the first step, I made a ghost backup image of the entire hard drive onto my big backup server. This would give me a snapshot of her hard drive and its heavily encrypted contents in case anything went wrong. In a worst-case scenario, everything could be put back exactly as it was before we started, both quickly and easily. Once that was done, I archived her email into a backup.pst file and then made other backups of her bookmarks and her favorites folders into her backup folder on the D drive. I quickly checked that my documents was empty, and it was, good girl. Anyone who stores data there on their OS drive is just asking for trouble and deserves to get their data lost. Once all of the minor backups were done, I then burned a data DVD of all of her D drive data, which was hers to keep. With that work done, now it was time for system maintenance. She had most automatic updates turned off on her laptop, as she considered any and all remote access to her computer by any software vendor, including Microsoft, to be a security violation. So, with the machine in my capable hands, I began to manually install operating system security, antivirus, anti-spyware, MS Office, and firewall updates, one at a time. It usually took hours to do this, and Liana, at her best and most suspicious, invariably tried to stay present and watch me like a hawk the entire time. Fortunately, within an hour or two, since she often had the attention span of a toddler, she would get bored watching the endlessly slow updating taskbars and start to find excuses to leave the room for just a minute or two, eventually giving me some breathing space without her staring at me like I was a paroled felon. By the time I was nearly done with just the OS and application updates, over 2 hours later, she was quite distracted with a phone call from a girlfriend and left me in peace and quiet for a full 15 minutes. This was all I needed to install a new and improved comprehensive security package for her that replaced her existing antivirus, anti-spyware, and internet firewall. SentryShield Pro is a fun little program suite that indeed replaces every other security and malware protection on your computer, and does a pretty good job of it. Much better, in my opinion, than Guardian Internet Security, which is nearly guaranteed to screw up any computer it is installed upon. I hope Peter Norton got a lot of money for selling off his company so he can sleep soundly at night. The good old days at his old company are very definitely long gone. The best feature of this program, however, is that it contains a goodly amount of Primo spyware integrated right into it. It's not the #1 hacker tool downloaded on Darknet for nothing. I like the program enough that I even bought a legal extended feature version of it, complete with some extra bells and whistles. With this program, I'd be able to learn the dozens of passwords she used and gain access to her email account in real time, invisible to her. I could even see the screen she was looking at remotely and take screenshots. It was just curiosity, really. She locked up her laptop like it was Fort Knox, and the urge to see what was hidden on it was scratching me like an itch that wouldn't go away. I was sure I wouldn't find a single damn thing of interest, but I desperately wanted to be able to give her a smug, superior look, knowing that the biggest state secret she was protecting was an upcoming review of the Verde Lounge and an editorial that this winter's trendy fashion color was likely to be midnight blue. I wish now I hadn't done it. I can only offer for an excuse that her bizarre world infatuation with ever-increasing levels of security around every part of her life was pissing me off to the extent that the D word, divorce, was starting to enter my thoughts late at night when I couldn't sleep. Frankly, I was expecting her to break out the aluminum foil any day now to make anti-mind probe shields for herself and the dog. Darn those pesky government mind control beams. I suggested over breakfast one morning that I could wire up the entire house to be a giant Faraday cage. But she didn't get the joke. Probably just as well. More than anything, I just wanted to prove to myself that the woman I had married was now quite batshit crazy. And if the marriage was to be saved at all, it was time for a really big knockdown, drag-out fight. To even have a prayer of winning, I needed to have some cards to lay down on the table. You would be depressed to learn how rarely cool, calm logic ever wins an argument against crazy. We were both just 44 years old and young enough to start over again if necessary for a hopefully happier future. Worst case, the house could be sold and the savings account split. We had no children, and our state didn't allow for alimony, so the split shouldn't be all that painful if necessary. I was at the crossroads, looking in both directions, and it was time to decide which way to go. Using my best geek speak, I told Liana when she returned that ID updated everything and that it was all good to go. She just about snatched the laptop out of my unclean and unworthy hands and raced to lock it back up into her ever-present leather briefcase. Naturally, receiving a word or two of thanks was quite out of the question, let alone the prospect of receiving a proper thank you BJ now or later. Men don't usually ask for a lot in life, and sometimes it's the simplest rewards that make us happiest. We do like to feel appreciated. Sure, BJs are very nice, but sometimes just a hug and a thank you will do. My work done, I enjoyed the rest of the holiday grilling, burning meat, and drinking too much beer. I couldn't wait to start cracking her impregnable data fortress once she got to work on Monday morning. Being the boss of a one-man department, I could work my own schedule and often come in late if I knew I needed to work on the computer network after hours when no users were on. But I was in bright and early that Monday. Most of my help requests always seem to occur on Mondays for some reason. The cleaners unplug cables and power cords accidentally, and the gremlins have had the weekend to do their random mischief. Today's drama consisted of a major problem with our company email server that tied up most of my day. Our ISP had changed one of their DNS settings for some random reason and never bothered to notify its users. This caused all of our email to sit unsent all weekend long. Morons. By the time I got everything fixed and every user happy, it was nearly time to go home, so I decided to let my fun wait another day. Besides, every 24 hours, I'd receive an event log by email of everything she did on her laptop, and that was really the best place to start my investigation. The fun at work continued again on Tuesday. They changed the DNS back to the old one again, so I had to once again reset all our email server settings, and it was late afternoon before I could load up my own master copy of SentryShield Pro and start to play. The rest of the week was dead quiet, when I had absolutely nothing to do, so I used the free time to very thoroughly spy on my wife's online activities. That's the way it goes at my office. It's either deadly dull or mass panic with rarely anything in between. At first glance, everything I looked at on her laptop met my expectations. No secret emails to shadowy government agencies or malicious foreign powers. No secret calendar entries setting up secret assignations with either spy masters or lovers. No signs of an affair or plans to abscond with Metro Living's entire bank account and skip off to Costa Rica with one of the young pool boys. Or even the latest ultra-feminist potboiler from the Oprah Book Club. I now had a complete listing of all her secret passwords, and I had read 98% of her encrypted data files until extreme boredom set in. No, midnight blue was not going to be the trendy color this winter. It was navy blue instead. Still, I gave myself points for a close guess. Boots, mid-calf, not ankle were the hot footwear, and the Ming Garden, an upscale Chinese restaurant chain, had paid for a full-page ad for the next 6 months and wanted a top-notch review. Be still my beating heart. I wasn't sure if I could stand the strain of protecting these dire secrets. I should have quit right then, but I was bored at work and got curious to find out what dodgy websites she surfed when she felt the need to get her freak on. I needn't have bothered. The closest site to 4chan that she visited was called r/confessions, a very heavy estrogen-laden place for bored housewives in the soap opera crowd to confess their deepest and darkest innermost secrets. Yawn. Tentacle or Yuri porn might actually have been a distinct improvement. I almost called it quits again right there. And I should have. Instead, I was so bored that Friday, I reviewed all of her logs for the last week and noted that she visited r/confessions a lot. Every single day, in fact. She usually surfed there during her lunch hour. This site was very definitely her single most favorite website to visit. Since I have a rather voyeuristic nature, which I freely admit, and I knew her username and password, I decided to give this site a very thorough read-through. I especially wanted to read Liana's posts and find out what deep, dark hidden secrets she wanted to confess. Did she want a lesbian lover? Better yet, did she want a threesome? Or did she just want to tie up Hugh Jackman and cover his helpless, quivering nude body with chocolate syrup and whipped cream and lick it all off slowly? Inquiring minds, namely mine, were now dying to find out. Using the remote control feature of SentryShield Pro, I remotely connected to her laptop and used it to covertly connect to the r/confessions website. Even if Liana was using her laptop right now, she wouldn't be able to detect that I was surfing the web via her computer. This let me connect to the site using her native network card MAC and IP address. Any tracing program would point directly at her laptop and not my computer miles away. Hello, Restless. This is your 223rd visit to r/confessions. You have no new private messages, and 4 users have added you as a favorite confessor since your last login. Once I was logged into the website, it was easy to find her registered confessor account management page and view all of her previous postings. Now I would learn all about the deep, dark secrets she felt the burning need to confess. The truth was a bit more mundane and shocked me to the core. In her dozens of postings this year, she detailed the account of a growing love affair. Not with her husband, or, alas, not even with a bisexual woman. She was having an affair. At first, I assumed she was just fantasizing online, maybe playing around, letting off some steam. But no, it was real. Here are a few selected examples of her postings from screenshots that I took. I have a new literary agent for some articles I want to write for some of the big New York fashion and style magazines, or even a romance novel I'd like to write. He's very tall and handsome, and he makes me tingle a bit when I look at him. Am married, but restless. Reader comments, yawn. This first posting was pretty much ignored. No drama or even trolling. Another monthly meeting with my hunky agent. I know he's interested in me too, and we spend a lot of time looking into each other's eyes. He's single, divorced, and I'm also very restless. I've never had an affair before, but I want him. Bad. Reader comments. You go, girl. Go for it. Tell us all of the nasty details. OMG, you deserve to be happy. Life is short. 93 other women thought that Restless should cheat on her husband. Only 6 thought it was a bad idea, but only then because she might get caught. He rejected me. I all but threw myself into his arms and offered myself to him, and he rejected me. He won't have an affair with a married woman, he says. He was quick to point out that if I were to divorce, that would be an entirely different matter. So he loves me too, but has principles. Cries. Reader comments. Crying face so sad. Drug him, kidnap him, and tie him down and assault him. Once he's done the dirty, you've got him. Claim assault if he won't toe the line. Face with raised eyebrow, WTF. No extreme was too crazy to rope and brand the lover of her dreams these days, it seems, for some women. Already, I could tell that this board was just teeming with crazy. No wonder Liana liked this site. She wasn't going to get any marriage-saving advice here. My husband won't give me a divorce. I found the man I really and truly love, and the rat scumsucker won't set me free to find happiness. He controls the money, and if I leave him, I'd never get a cent of our savings or see our 2 young children again. He'd ruin me in the divorce. There has to be a way to escape. Reader comments. Pouting face, do whatever it takes. Fight the scumsucker for everything. Take everything he's got. Face with head bandage, give yourself some fake injuries and blame your husband. Get a steady stream of domestic assault police calls to your house and get photos. You'll screw him for every dime he has in court. And so on. It just got worse. And scarier. The idea of making fraudulent battered spouse claims didn't scare or deter anyone. Some of the readers even posted specific, helpful advice, allegedly from experience, on how to make their claims of abuse more believable in court. Holy shit. Who were these crazy women? And why was my wife now raving insanely about me blocking a divorce? We had never discussed divorce. What children? This was a whole metric crapload of insanity. And it was growing worse with each post. I've got to find a way to break free. He's watching me like a hawk, checking over everything that I do. He's even got my boss at work checking up constantly on me for him. I can't get the chance to show what an abusive manipulator he really is. Getting the police to catch him is going to be hard. It might be easier to try a different plan. Things would be so much easier if I were a widow. My dear Roger would most certainly be there to comfort me. Reader comments. Smiling face with horns, kill that abusive scumsucker. Honey, you deserve to be happy. Don't let anyone stand in your way. Holy crap. Did these crazy women actually advocate murdering someone's husband in order to upgrade to a better boyfriend? There weren't quite as many comments here, but there was precious little sanity. The overwhelming conclusion was very definitely that the ends justify the means. The next half-dozen postings I skipped. Too much psychodrama. Over the next several entries, the crazy accepted it as gospel that I was a psychotic pedophile tyrant who abused and daily beat my family within an inch of their lives. Or, in other words, a typical male as depicted on the Lifetime channel. Various methods of murdering me and getting away with it were discussed. Until one Black Widow poster, again quoting from significant personal experience, suggested an overseas source for buying certain nearly untraceable poisons, such as pancuronium bromide, a favorite substance of government spies and Black Widows everywhere. I did it. I bought a $100 gift credit card with cash and ordered a little bottle of my problem solver over their website. It should ship from India this week, and I might hopefully have it in my hands by August 4th. My very own Independence Day. He'll put it in his coffee, where the sugar will cover the slight bitterness and the slight citrus tang. Hooray! Soon. My lovely Roger. Soon we will be together forever. He's pushing me to hurry up and do the deed so that he can comfort this poor widow. I've already got a hot little dress in black that will do perfectly for our next meeting together. Reader comments. Skull you go, girl. Black heart, more homicidal craziness, etc. Ad nauseum. Okay. Even a dumbass would get the idea by now that my loving wife was going to poison me and then run into the comforting arms of her lover. Still, as shocking as this whole thing was, it was just too crazy. I was certainly not an abusive spouse, nor did I molest our non-existent children. The minute she asked me for a divorce, it was hers. No argument. The whole situation just made no sense. I was still alive, so obviously her wonder drug had not yet arrived. Just in case, I decided to skip drinking any coffee at home this weekend. The entire series of confessions just seemed too strange and bizarre to be true. But just in case, I print-screened a lot of them and put the printouts into a folder and locked them in my desk. With a note, to be opened in the event of my death. I had nothing to take to the police or even worth a phone call to one of my friends. I stewed about the situation for a good hour after I should have already left work. But in the end, I trotted on home like a good lamb to await my execution. Somehow, I thought I'd either find some proof to back up this wild story, or else it would all turn out to be massive psycho craziness. By Monday, I'd either be poisoned and dead or ready to pack up my things and move somewhere else less packed full of crazy. My best chance to snoop for evidence came Saturday night. We hosted a small dinner party for some work friends of Liana, and everyone, except me, had hit the wine cellar pretty heavily. My wife had consumed almost a full bottle of red wine all by herself. She's not normally much of a drinker, and when she does, it hits her hard and fast. By the end of the evening, she was hinting loudly that she'd have a surprise by the end of next week but wouldn't even tell anyone, especially me, what her good news was. I had watched my wine glass like a hawk, in case she decided to spike it instead of my coffee, as she had publicly stated. In any case, not 5 minutes after our guests had gone, my darling bride was stumbling toward bed, and was soon out like a light, snoring up a storm. This was my golden chance to snoop around in her purse and her locked leather laptop case. Come to find out, I didn't even need to try and pick that lock. The evidence I needed was right inside her purse. A small glass vial labeled pancuronium bromide. I found all of the proof I needed. I had to look the stuff up on the internet to find out what it did. But the knowledge brought me little satisfaction. It's an extremely high-powered muscle relaxant that is usually too dangerous for medical use. Just a few drops will stop your heart from beating forever. Now it was time to decide what to do about it. I had an old syringe in my bathroom closet at home, left over from some vet medicine we had given to our dog a few months ago. I cleaned it and filled it full with some of her poison, leaving the vial still mostly full. She'd never notice the missing amount. I wasn't going to simply inject her with it. No, too simple, too easy, too detectable. It was best used diluted in something, and I soon decided where best to administer it. I didn't get a moment of sleep all weekend. I cannot explain why I did what I did next. If put to the question, I could plead extreme sleep deprivation and temporary insanity. But in truth, my heart was really far more broken than I would have expected. I had not wanted a divorce, and now it looked like there could never be one. Monday afternoon, while brooding in my dark office at work, with the lights off and window shutters closed, I came to my terrible decision. I couldn't file for divorce now. It was too late, and I'd still end up poisoned. I had to turn the tables somehow, even if that meant striking the first blow in self-preservation. While I was searching Liana's purse Saturday night, I had found her little portable day planner. This was one of her most secretly kept items, and I had long been dying for a quick delve into it. It was very educational. Apparently, at the start of their relationship, Liana and Roger met monthly at a local cafe to discuss their business. Starting last month, their meetings became weekly, every Friday afternoon at a local hotel, for 2 hours. So much for business. They reserved the room a week in advance each time, and they would be there again, room 243, this coming Friday. This was where I now planned to set my trap. Getting a copy of the hotel key on Monday afternoon was simple. I requested that particular room and paid cash. Then, I took the key off of its distinctive hotel chain and, on my very first try, found a dodgy locksmith willing to make a copy of the key for a $100 bribe. I had a few other preparations to make that week, but the hardest part was just waiting for Friday to come. Liana was starting to be suspicious that I no longer had any interest in drinking her coffee or anything else for that matter in the morning before work. I pleaded nerves and made sure that I fixed my own drinks. In the evening at home, I drank only sealed bottled water. The atmosphere at home started to become extremely strained, as if both of us knew that the other was up to something. Since she never bothered to tell me her secrets, I certainly wasn't about to tell her any of mine. I gave her one last chance. Late Thursday evening, while we were watching TV, and not even sitting very close to each other. Liana, you've been keeping a lot of secrets from me lately, even more than usual. Even for you. Marriage is supposed to be based on love and trust, and I'm not sure we have either one of those things right now. Do you have any confessions that you want to make to me? Or should I find a good divorce lawyer and leave you and your paranoid world of secrets in peace? Okay, maybe I shouldn't have stated that last little bit. In my defense, I was bone-weary, annoyed, angry, and very tired of playing her little mind games. She screamed at me incoherently for 5 full minutes, without a break, not even for air. And after throwing anything and everything within arm's reach at me, she stomped off angrily to bed and slammed the bedroom door. I stayed on the sofa, but I couldn't say that I managed to get any sleep. But I did feel a whole lot more relieved about my plans than I had all week. In the morning, she stomped out the door without saying a single word to me. It only made what I had to do that much easier. My plan for Friday worked like fine clockwork. I arrived late at work, with big black circles under my bloodshot eyes, and instructed our company receptionist that I was in, but not to bother me unless it involved either fire or someone bleeding to death. I shut the door to my office and stayed there for the rest of the morning. Brooding. Just before noon, I made my surreptitious escape down the service freight elevator. There is a security video camera that covers the loading dock, but only where the trucks park and unload. There is a side door leading to the lobby that is not covered. I took it. I had parked in my normal reserved spot in the garage, which required a parking card to enter. I used mine as normal in the morning, but I didn't need it to leave. There were no security cameras anywhere in the garage, and when I returned, I would use the parking card of a former employee to get back in. It still worked. I had checked it yesterday. Security was very lax in our office building, and our building management were a bunch of lazy sods that had to be reminded at least 5 times to do anything. My departure and return would not be recorded nor noted. The hotel room was near the back end of the building, in a fairly remote corner, perfect for a little midday privacy for their dalliances. There was one security camera that covered the parking lot of the hotel, near where I could walk up the outside staircase to the room without otherwise being observed. I'd already taken care of it. I shot it out with my .22 scoped rifle on Wednesday night from a dark and vacant parking lot across the street. It was a very easy, short-range shot, and I nailed it on the first try. It hadn't been replaced or particularly noticed. I guess security cameras break all the time around hotels, as they are hotbeds for lowlives stealing luggage from travelers and auto theft. I went in, did my business, and was out in less than 5 minutes. No panic. No rush. I was oddly as cool as a cucumber. I still had nearly 25 minutes to wait for the happy couple to arrive. Liana, I knew I could count on being early. She always tended to be at least 5 minutes early for any appointment. But I had no way of knowing how Roger's internal clock ran. I moved my car off to a remote corner of the parking lot, where Liana wouldn't be able to see me when she drove up, and I slunk down low to wait. I didn't have to wait long. Roger was running early too. They both arrived almost at the same time in separate cars. They shared a big hug at the hotel entrance and went inside, without any further gestures. Liana was never one for public displays of affection. She didn't even like me holding her hand in public. Still, I felt a bit disappointed. I had wanted to witness something undeniable. Some clear sign of intimacy between them that she never shared with me. Something to erase any lingering doubts in the back of my mind. But I wasn't going to get that now. I had one last piece of work to do. That morning, after Liana stomped out of the house, I had taken a solid hour to pack up several of her suitcases with some of her better clothes, her best jewelry, her skimpiest lingerie and nightwear. Not that there was much of it, and so on. Anything that I figured a woman would pack up on short notice for a separation or a wild weekend with a new boyfriend. I had a set of keys for her trunk, and I put her 3 bags inside and shut it. My work now done. Using the old employee gate access card, I returned to work. I slunk back up the freight elevator and into my office, without anyone seeing even a hair of me. No messages taped to my door. No blinking red lights on my phone. I hadn't been missed. I made a token pass around the office to be seen. But soon, I slunk back into my cave of despair to brood for the remainder of the afternoon. My nerves now totally shot, and my mental batteries completely drained. Now I had nothing left to do with my life except wait. And I had to wait for quite a long time. There were no phone calls at work that afternoon, and no phone calls at home later that evening. Nothing, in fact, happened all night long. I had a drink or two to try and settle my nerves and keep myself from pacing holes in the carpet. But it just made things worse. So I drank some more, and broke open a good bottle of rum that I'd been saving for a special occasion, and sipped on that in front of late-night TV until nearly dawn Saturday, when I finally passed out on the sofa. When I woke up mid-afternoon, I started the party off again, right where I left off the night before. And I was pretty pickled by the time a pair of police officers arrived at my door a little after 6 p.m. After a lot of preliminaries, such as establishing that Liana lived here or used to until yesterday morning, and my name and relationship with her, we got down to some brass tacks. "Sir, do you know where your wife is?" "Don't know, and can't say that I care anymore. We separated yesterday morning. She's off with her boyfriend." I think she's been having an affair with her literary agent. Go ask him. She packed her bags and everything. I'll be filing divorce papers on Monday. She has had an accident, but we can't tell you anything more at this time. I did my best to look surprised, but was really too drunk and depressed to much care. That settled most of their questions right off the bat. Good, because in my current state, I wasn't entirely sure what answers I was giving. It did appear that my fairly genuine performance of a cuckolded and abandoned husband was spot on the mark. It didn't raise any red flags with the officers. They weren't investigators. They were just patrol cops that got the call from dispatch to notify the next of kin. I told them to look around anywhere they wanted, and I went into the kitchen to wage war with Liana's sophisticated Italian coffee maker. I was a sleepy, maudlin drunk at the moment, and I wanted some coffee to sober up enough to become a fully wide-awake drunk. I fought with the machine for nearly half an hour before admitting defeat. I unplugged the damn thing and offered it as a door prize to the officers. Liana loved that damn thing more than me, apparently, and I was surprised she didn't take it with her. It grinds, roasts, and brews everything, except plain bloody coffee. She could make espressos, cappuccinos, lattes, and so forth. But the damn thing wouldn't make a plain cup of joe. They declined my gift, so I set the machine out on the curb, next to the trash can. I noticed that it then disappeared about the exact same time the officers left. Sneaky scumsuckers. After they left, I resumed my little one-person party and pretty much finished the remainder of my rum bottle, before curling up on the bathroom floor, in front of the toilet, for a long, uninterrupted sleep until Sunday morning. I showered, but decided to skip shaving, and skipped any more alcohol as a substitute for breakfast. In fact, I cooked enough for 3 people and ate it all. Then I spent the afternoon packing up everything of Liana's that was left in the house, and moved it all into the garage. By early evening, I was still feeling ambitious, and had started to mow the lawn, when a police detective finally arrived to formally question me. Officially, I was finally notified that my wife and another man were both found dead in a hotel room, under extremely odd circumstances. But more than that, he wouldn't give me any additional information. Did I wish to make any statements? Sure. I told him everything I thought he needed to know. What's so odd about it? Ask anyone who knew my wife, and I'll give you at least a dozen names if you want them, and they'd all agree that she was a raving psycho. Well, actually, most of her friends had better manners and would just say she was excitable and had numerous eccentricities. Liana was seriously manic-depressive, just like her mother. No one could ever get her into a doctor's office to get medicated. Last weekend, she was on a manic high, telling everyone that she'd have good news soon. But by Thursday night, she was in a depressed fit about something. She loved to keep secrets and never told me any of them. Between you, me, and the lamp post, I think she had plans to run off with her lover, but he might have gotten cold feet on her. She admitted Thursday night that she was having an affair and wanted out and took some suitcases with her when she left for work Friday morning. I think her affair was with her literary agent, but I can't prove it. I've never met the man. I see, the detective said, hinting that I should continue. Can you tell me how she died? Wait, skip that. I honestly don't really care. Since you're standing here asking me questions, I have to assume it's something nasty, like murder-suicide. That would fit Liana to a T. I'll even bet you that there isn't even a suicide note. That would require some measure of consideration for others, which she didn't have a drop of. Not even an "I'm sorry for the inconvenience." My guess is that she snapped when he told her that he wasn't going to run off and play house with her, and she stabbed him something like 30 or 40 times before leaping to her own death upon the busiest freeway in town, probably during rush-hour traffic, just to cause the maximum amount of inconvenience for everyone. Did I nail it? Not quite, the detective said with a smile. And before you ask, I do not want to go to the morgue to see or identify the body. You can call her mother for that. I'll give you the number. My interest or concern in the affairs of my wife, or rather my late wife, ended the moment she slammed the front door with suitcases in hand. Good riddance. I don't want to see her or her body again. I won't be going to the funeral, and I especially don't want her ashes. I'm sorry if this is callous, cold, or harsh, but I'm just thanking God right now that she didn't start off her crazy spree by killing me first. All of her stuff is packed in the garage. You can look through anything you want and even take anything you might think is helpful. But unless I'm told otherwise, it's all going off to Goodwill later next week. The detective took a spin around the house and asked a few more questions. But nothing pointed or remotely tricky. He shook my hand, wished me well, and drove off. It was the last official time anyone involved in the investigation asked anything of me. No, I didn't visit the morgue or attend the funeral. Liana's mother tried to sign me up for the biggest funeral package the mortuary she selected offered, but a quick phone call to the owner straightened that out, since I was apparently going to get stuck with the cost as the legal guardian of her estate. Yes, we both had wills. I demanded the cheesiest, low-cost cremation the funeral home offered. Her mother pitched dozens of fits, but I was used to that sort of juvenile behavior from her daughter, and I didn't have to take it anymore. I told her to shut up and take the ashes home with her, or else I would dump the contents into some roadside ditch next to a toxic waste dump. In case she didn't quite get the hint, I sent her a congratulations Hallmark card with a short personal note to lose my address and phone number and never contact me again. She never picked up the ashes. The damn urn has still got to be somewhere in my closet, next to Christmas wrap and winter clothes. Out of sight and very out of mind. Someday, I'll find the perfect place to be rid of the last of her once and for all. The investigation ran for months, but in a very low-key manner. The delay was waiting for the toxicology results for both victims and for an IT forensics team to repair her laptop. The first investigators that handled it tried to brute force their way past her login screens and enabled her scorched earth last measure of defense, a security applet that quickly wiped the drives with ones and zeros, scrambling everything into permanent rubbish. Naturally, this really whetted their appetite for discovering what secrets she was trying to hide from them. They sent it to 2 different data recovery labs to be rebuilt. But they never recovered anything. From what I heard, no one ever asked me if she had any backups. I would have willingly offered them. Accordingly, no one ever got to read Liana's crazed writings at our /confessions. And frankly, I was very disappointed, since I wanted everyone to know just how crazy my former wife really was. Fortunately, the final coroner's report back to the police concluded murder-suicide. Her fingerprints were found on the glass vial of pancuronium bromide, a very illegal and controlled substance in non-medical hands. A search of her locked desk drawer at work produced the original mailing label and package from India, also covered with her prints. The drug had been administered via a pitcher of water, found on a table inside the hotel room, that poisoned both victims. Sliced lemons and limes floating in the water had masked the taste. A grocery bag containing additional lemons and limes was found in the trunk of her car, next to her suitcases. An empty syringe containing drug residue was found on the floor, next to the dresser, where the water pitcher had originally been placed by housekeeping. The final police report was closed, claiming that Liana had left her husband with the expectation of eloping with her new boyfriend, who apparently chose this time to announce that he was already married and was not going to leave his wife. In a rage, Liana poisoned the pair of them. It wasn't perfect or especially neat and tidy, but all of the witness interviews with Liana's friends and co-workers agreed that she was a bit manic-depressive. She was noted to be especially depressed on that final Friday. It fit the facts, and the police stamped the case closed and moved on to other investigations, without a single glance back. Roger the widow, yes, the literary agent, was apparently quite happily married. He always claimed that it was impossible for him to have been having an affair with Liana, but could offer no otherwise suitable excuse for why the two of them met weekly in a hotel room. Both were still fully clothed, and a large amount of literary paperwork was found on the hotel room table. It was assumed that since Roger was now trying to break off the affair, he had been concentrating on business this last meeting, before Liana had poisoned them. Her heart broken, I was more than satisfied that my vengeance had been done. Until about 6 months later, when I received a phone call from a book publisher, asking what the status was on the contract for Liana's novel. What novel? Come to find out, Liana and her agent had been in the final contract stages of a deal to sell her first novel. The publisher had asked for some last-minute changes to the manuscript, and then had heard nothing about its progress since. I didn't know anything about it, so I called up the police inspector who had visited me to ask if they had found a novel manuscript anywhere in Liana's personal effects. Locked up in an evidence storage locker, there was one, and they had also found a small USB drive, stored in her laptop case, that had an encrypted copy of the original manuscript. The police IT forensics team had partially broken that security, enough to verify that the document was probably not related to the crime, and had largely forgotten about it. Since I had to sign a bunch of paperwork to claim her property from police evidence, they were quite glad to be rid of it all. I think they had even called me about this stuff a few months ago, and I had fairly rudely told them to trash it all. Fortunately, they hadn't. Her novel was very enlightening, and the more I read it, the greater my doubts and concerns became. By the time I was done, I was sure that I had murdered a completely crazy but otherwise innocent woman. Her novel was a thriller. It concerned a beaten and abused housewife who turns to an internet gossip and confession board for solace. Gradually, the heroine becomes emboldened to fight back against her oppressor, and even at the end, learns how to obtain illegal and dangerous drugs from unregulated overseas pharmacies. She poisons her husband's coffee and escapes police justice. She lives happily with a new man,